Yes, sir.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us today. We are going to be reviewing prompting strategies. And when we use the word prompting, what are we talking about? What do we mean here?
It's almost like signaling the client for the response that we're looking for.
Okay, so signaling a response from our client, we're adding something to the environment that hopefully will evoke a response from one of our clients, one of our VIPs. And is this an antecedent or a consequence strategy, would you say?
Antecedent.
Yeah, so this is an antecedent strategy. So these strategies come before behavior, right? Because they're hopefully going to signal and evoke behaviors we like to see from our VIP. So let's get right into it. Appreciate the answers and the participation. So a prompts are temporary, and that's really important. The first part of this prompt definition is that they're temporary, that we should be thinking about feeding our prompts right off the bat. We should also notice times when staff, parents, caregivers are prompting ongoingly without feeding their prompts. And think about a prompt as a way to make a behavior easier, a way to make the behavior we want happen, but they should be very temporary because could become reliant on the prompts and then need them always to engage in that certain behavior. So they're temporary supplementary antecedent stimuli used to occasion a correct response in the presence of the natural situation or natural SD that will eventually control the behavior. So the example I always think about here is think about, we're helping a VIP wash their hands perhaps. And we maybe put up a sign or instructions maybe or maybe even a sign in the bathroom for employees to say employees must wash their hands, right? So we hope that over time we could get rid of that sign and that VIP will continue to engage in the hand washing behavior when they're in that natural environment without using our prompts. So think about a prompt as to kind of start a behavior going, get a behavior going so that you could lead it to reinforcement. But they should be faded as the client or the VIP starts to maintain that behavior. We're going to start to fade our prompts. We're going to start to get rid of them to promote independence. Okay. So think about that when we fade our prompts, we are helping the VIP become more independent. And that's exactly what we're trying to do always. There's two types of prompts we're going to be talking about today, response prompts. And when I say the word response, what do I mean? What are you guys thinking about when I say the word response? It starts with a B.
Yeah, I always think of response and behavior. I've flipped them. They're almost essentially the same thing.
I know, I don't like to split hairs on it either, Mark. But yeah, a response is just a single instance of a behavior. So when I say response prompt, what I like to think about is that the clinician is engaging in a behavior or a response in order to get the behavior from our VIP to happen. So operates directly on the response or the behavior to cue a correct response. And we're going to get into the different types of response prompts in this training. And you'll see that the response prompt is just us, the clinician engage or any caregiver engaging in a behavior to get a behavior from someone else. Three main forms of response prompts are verbal instruction or verbal prompting. When we give that verbal prompt, modeling could be another type of response prompt. We're engaged in a model behavior. And also, the most intrusive of the response prompts is the physical guidance, hand over hand, or the full physical prompt, where we're essentially, with the VIP's permission, we're gently taking their hand to engage in the behavior that we are wanting to see. And we'll get into kind of ways to feed our prompting. They are some ideas about response prompts. And then we have stimulus prompting. And stimulus prompting is us adding something to the environment that hopefully will evoke the behavior, operates directly on the antecedent task stimuli to cue a correct response in conjunction with the critical SD or the natural SD. So, and we're going to get into some stimulus prompting in this training as well to give you guys some examples about what that means. But stimulus prompts is us adding something to the environment that will evoke the behavior. One example here could be a proximity prompt where if I want to go to the gym and I keep forgetting my gym bag, what can I do in the morning to help evoke me taking my gym bag with me? Can anyone think of an idea?
Put a Post-it on your front door, so when you go to close the
Clothes in the
door.
car.
Okay, good idea. Sue, good idea. Nadine, thank you for the example there. Yeah, put the clothes in the car first would really solve our problems. But the stimulus prompt is something we're adding to the environment. So the Post-it note could be something that signals to us, hey, don't forget to take your bag in the morning. As we start taking our bag every day and we get to go to the gym, access to reinforcement, we could probably get rid of that Post-it prompt, that Post-it prompt. And hopefully we will still be taking our bag to the gym without that prompt in place. So just an example of what a stimulus prompt could be and how to fade it over time. Another example could be a proximity prompt here, where we put our gym bag in front of the door, right? And then when we go to leave, we see our gym bag right there. And over time, we could put the gym bag back in its natural spot. And hopefully that behavior will maintain into the future. So just some ideas about stimulus prompting and how we might fade them and think about fading those to be more natural and more independent. So there's risks, and we talked about this a little bit already. Practitioners must be aware that there's a risk of prompt dependency with the application of response and stimulus prompts. This occurs due to a failure to transfer the stimulus control from the prompt to the desired stimuli. And what that means is that's just a complicated way of saying that practitioners failed to fade the prompts or get rid of the prompts. And the VIP becomes very prompt dependent on response and stimulus prompts in order to engage in a certain behavior. So we need to be very aware of that. And we also need to be aware of ways to fade these prompts as we're working with our VIPs. So we must establish stimulus control with frequent differential reinforcement of behavior in the presence and absence of the SD condition. So that, I feel like this PowerPoint's a little complicated. Sorry about that. But what does that mean? How do we use differential reinforcement to promote independence while fading our prompts?
You would use a higher reinforcement for behavior. Like if you're able to provide a lesser prompt, then you would increase your reinforcement. Whereas if you have to do hand over hand, you would have less reinforcement after the behavior.
Yeah, that's totally correct. We're going to provide a higher level of reinforcement for those more independent responses or those responses that are a lesser intrusive prompt or full independence. We're going to heavily reinforce those behaviors. And behaviors that are prompted on the same level, we may provide a moderate level of reinforcement. And I say that, higher level of reinforcement. Can we give an example of what we mean by that? Say the VIP, we've been using model prompt to get hand washing behavior from our VIP, and now we used a verbal prompt, and that worked. How can we differentiate reinforcement for those two instances?
Immediate praise and with enthusiasm, more enthusiasm.
So more enthusiasm for the more independent response. And maybe a moderate amount of enthusiasm for the prompted response.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, absolutely. So that's just a way to think about it, that we're going to and if you think about it, guys, when we use prompts, we are essentially making the behavior easier, right? Think about when you're in school and maybe you had like a tough math problem and the teacher could come over and help you, give you some guidance about how to complete that. If the teacher didn't start to fade her prompts over time, that student might become very reliant on that teacher to come over and keep giving them help, keep giving them assistance. So one way for the teacher to kind of And why would we not want that? You know, our brain's kind of hardwired to get the most bang for our buck, so get the most reinforcement with the least effortful behaviors. So why wouldn't we always wait for help? Well, if we use differential reinforcement and provide a higher level of reinforcement for the more independent response is one way to do that. The other way is to use these prompting strategies we're going to get into, prompt feeding strategies we're going to get into right now. And there's 4 we're going to review today: most to least, least to most, time delay, and graduated guidance. And we're going to get into each one. So not only are we using differential reinforcement, but we're also thinking about fading our prompts using these methods. So the first one is most to least, and they're usually represented like this on a pyramid. And if you look on the left-hand side, you see on the bottom of the pyramid is the full physical, so the most intrusive prompt. And as we move up the pyramid, they become less and less intrusive. So we see partial physical prompt, light physical prompt, model gesture, verbal, and then finally the top of the pyramid, which is the natural cue or the natural environmental stimuli that would evoke that behavior. So let's look on the right-hand side, and I like what they did here. They are teaching a VIP to clap their hands. So what they did is they took the pyramid and they included what exactly their prompt should be for these specific behaviors. So the first one, and with most to least, what we're doing is we're starting off with the most intrusive prompt. So we're going to start doing hand over hand, and we're going to slowly try to fade our prompt by moving up the pyramid. So for instance, I'm working with the VIP, we're teaching the clap hands. I'm first going to start, and of course I want to have a good relationship with the VIP. I want to make sure they're okay with using this full physical and partial physical prompting and light physical prompting before I engage in these types of response prompts. If I have a good relationship and they're okay with me using full physical prompting, I'm going to start off with doing hand over hand. So I take my hands and I help guide the VIP to clap their hands. And I provide praise or reinforcement to engage in that behavior. Well, after a trial or two of doing that, I'm going to then move up the pyramid and attempt to hold learner by the wrist and forearms and engage in that clapping behavior again. And think of that as a way that we're fading our prompt, fading our intrusiveness. And that starts to have success. And now I continue with that. And then I move up after a few more trials or a few more sessions to tap elbows. So now we're just essentially tapping the VIP's elbows. Hopefully they will engage in that clapping behavior then. Finally, we see a model prompt where the instructor is going to clap. And we hope the VIP will engage in that behavior. There's no verbal prompt they're using in this example because finally the natural cue is for someone to say clap, and then the VIP will hopefully clap. Does anyone have any questions about most to least? So we're starting with the most intrusive and fading to the least intrusive. And any questions about that?
No.
So this is a good procedure to use for behaviors that the VIP is very new to. So working with children, you know, children are new to a lot of behaviors, right? So might be a good procedure to use. And for our adult VIPs who maybe are brand new to a certain behavior we're trying to teach them, this method might be a good choice for those individuals. Least to most is another method that we may choose to use. And in this example, we're going to start off with the natural cue, and we're going to slowly move down the pyramid. So for instance, this is to touch a blue, and I imagine this is to touch a blue card behavior that we're trying to teach our VIP. And the natural cue here is for the teacher to say, touch blue, and we're going to see if the VIP engages in the behavior. If they do, great, we're going to reinforce it and we're just going to just remain there. But if the VIP doesn't, we're going to slowly move down the pyramid. So the first one is touch blue. The VIP doesn't engage in the behavior. We're going to move up to point to a blue card. That's what we're going to engage in. And we hope our VIP engage in the behavior. And if they don't, we're going to guide learner by the forearms to touch the blue card. Well, here they do. So we're going to reinforce that behavior. and we're going to rinse and repeat the same procedure as we continue working with the VIP. And what the hope is that eventually pointing to a blue card and the word touch blue will eventually control that behavior, and we can fade that prompt out. But you can also, as well, if you see that guiding learner by the forearm was successful, you could also then kind of think about it as like almost like a test that we kind of tested by using least to most to see where the VIP is right now, to see kind of what was the least intrusive prompt that would lead to success for us to see the behavior. So if we saw success for guide learner by the forearm, I could then switch to a most to least method here and then fade out my prompts by starting with the guide learner by the forearms and switching this to a most to least. So you can also use a least to most to kind of test to see where the VIP stands as far as what is the least intrusive prompt that would generate that behavior. So this could be an effective method for VIPs that know the behavior, that've been around the behavior, seen it being done over and over again throughout their lives. And it might be a better choice for our adult VIPs. And also to find out ourselves kind of where the VIP stands so we don't accidentally use a more intrusive prompt when a lesser one would suffice. I hope I explained that okay. Does anyone have any questions to clear the air about it?
No, you did well.
Oh, thank you. Does anyone have a different opinion? Go ahead.
So so you said the least to most method, is that it's only used to test?
No, no, you could continue using this least to most method as you're working with the VIPs. Because think about it, what you're doing is you're trying to see if a lesser intrusive prompt will work. So, but you can also use it to test to see where they stand as well. So no, you could keep using it ongoingly. And the idea is that you hope that touch blue, in this case, would evoke the behavior eventually, and you are essentially fading out your prompts by using this least to most method. You're trying to see if that lesser prompt will work for you. And if it doesn't, you're just going to move up to the next one. Good question. Appreciate it. Anyone else? And you don't have to raise your hand. I cannot see all the screens for you guys. So just blurt it out if you have a question. All right, least to most. So time delay prompting, and I really like time delay prompting. You don't have to consider this pyramid as much, and I think it's a much easier when you're working in the field procedure to implement. And essentially what we're doing here is the time between the SD and the prompt is increased over time. So essentially I'm going to put so I'm teaching someone to tact or label cards. Then I hold up a card of the school bus, and right away this VIP, they're brand new to the labeling school buses. I hold up a card that has a school bus on it, and I instantly prompt the VIP using a verbal prompt. School bus. And then the VIP says school bus, and I provide reinforcement in the form of praise. Great job. And then essentially what I do is I increase the time between when I hold up the card and I say the word school bus. So I'm going to first wait 3 seconds, then 5 seconds, then 7 seconds before I offer that prompt. And what I'm doing here is I'm giving my VIP a chance to respond independently. And if they do, I'm going to provide that higher level of reinforcement. So time delay I like because you're not switching the prompts you're doing, right? You could pick a prompt that's working and stick with it. So it doesn't have to be a verbal prompt. It could be a model prompt or any of the other prompts we reviewed, gesture, physical. And what we're doing is we're just increasing the time before we offer that prompt, until we are up to 30 seconds, 40 seconds, and we have fade that prompt way out there, and we don't even need to offer that prompt anymore because our VIP is responding independently. Choose a prompt that's reliably evoking the behavior. So pick that prompt that's working. Pick that prompt that's going to work for the VIP every time. That's the prompt you want to use. for time delay, and that's the prompt you want to use for all of these. Does anyone have any questions about time delay prompt fading, prompt fade?
I was just going to say, you're just doing that now by saying, does anyone have any questions? And then you let that tension build until somebody answers.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're so right. And I will provide differential reinforcement too for that person that does participate, just to let you guys know. Okay, no question about time delay. I like it, guys. It's a good one to use, good one to think about while working with our VIPs. Not as complicated, I'd say. Finally, the graduated guidance. So here it's a prompting technique in which physical guidance is provided only when needed and faded as immediately as possible. So what we're going to do is provide physical guidance as needed, but immediately fade assistance per behavior. And we're going to begin with shadowing the learner closely, getting to know how the VIP is responding to a behavior. And it's recommended as well for this procedure to prompt from behind. So we're kind of fading our body out of the situation right away. As our VIPs engaging in the behavior, we're going to increase distance by gradually changing locations of physical prompt and proximity to the prompter. So and it's called spatial fading. So what we're going to do is we're slowly going to fade ourselves into the back of the room, into the doorway, so we could slowly leave. And if our VIP makes a mistake, we're going to prompt immediately. We're going to swoop in and provide our prompting. It could be in the form of hand-over-hand assistance, model prompting, verbal prompting, any of that. And as our VIP starts to engage in the correct behavior, we're going to fade ourselves away again. We're going to fade away and keep a close eye on our VIP. If they start to struggle or engage in like a difficult task, we're going to swoop right back in and help them. And then when they start engaging in the behavior successfully again, we're going to start to fade ourselves away again. So use for behavior chains. And what's a behavior chain? Is that like some new jewelry that the kids are wearing these days?
It's a sequence of behaviors that tend to occur like either in conjunction with each other or like one after each other.
Yeah, so it's a certain how am I gonna say this? It's the steps of a behavior that lead to an ultimate reinforcer. So think about all the behaviors you have to engage in to brush your teeth. What do you have to do? What are some behaviors?
Go to the bathroom, turn on the, pick up your toothbrush, put the toothpaste on the toothbrush.
Then what?
Wet your toothbrush again and then put the toothbrush on your teeth and start moving around.
Nice. So so that's a behavioral chain, right? So that all those behaviors go into brushing our teeth. So we see that this behavioral chain kind of we're watching our VIP brush their teeth. They are having trouble with maybe putting the toothpaste on the toothbrush, right? So we're shadowing, we're watching, we're being that helpful eye in the corner. Our VIPs at that task, we know they have trouble here. We were watching. They start to have trouble with it. Well, Chloe's gonna swoop in from behind and provide hand over hand assistance to help our VIP put that toothpaste on the toothbrush. And then the VIP starts to pick up the behavior, starts to be good with it. And then right in the same session, right in the same moment, Chloe's going to fade away by stepping away and allowing independence for our VIP. So it allows some more flexibility. When you feel the learner responding on their own, we're going to reduce our prompting by fading away, by walking away, taking steps away, and carefully attend to the child or adult's movements to learn when more intrusive prompts may be needed. So as we're working with our VIPs, we may know some of the steps they kind of struggle with, and we can be well prepared to swoop in for those and to provide the physical assistance for them to be successful. So that's what graduated guidance is all about. What's your favorite method? Come on, don't tell me you guys don't have a favorite method.
think they all have their own specific niche uses for, it's like the right prescription for the right, so maybe you would use time delay more for manding, and then, assessment you'd use least to most to least is for strengthening, and then, graduated guidance you could use for, like you said, for behavior change.
Spoken like a true BCBA, Mark. Great answer. Yeah, totally agree with you. They're all used for different purposes. So let's not pick a favorite. Let's use the best method for the situation at hand. I totally agree. All right, so those are response prompts, guys. Those are how we fade response prompts. Okay, and again, our response prompt is just us engaging in a behavior or a response to get a behavior from our VIPs. Okay, and these are 4 methods to fade our prompting. And guys, when should we start thinking about fading prompts with our VIPs?
As soon as possible.
Yeah, immediately. We should think about fading our prompts. Right off the bat, we are working on fading our prompts to promote independence. The longer we go by providing that help, the more likely prompt dependency will happen. And then it's much more difficult to break that behavior. All right. Stimulus prompts. We talked a little bit about this. The one thing to consider here, guys, is they're easier to fade. So stimulus prompts, a lot of times when I'm doing supervision, at least, I try to think of stimulus prompting as a method to choose over response prompting some of the time, if I could, because they are essentially easier to fade. And also more consistent. Because think about response prompts, the VIP will go home, will be on the van, will be at the day program, be in all these places. Are we sure that all those people that are interacting with the VIP are going to be engaged in the same level of prompt and then learn about these prompt fading strategies and be implementing it and everyone's on the same page with it? What do you guys think?
No.
No, right? That's gonna be very difficult. So, a lot of times people are in the VIP's life are providing more intrusive prompts when lesser ones can be helpful. And us as clinicians could only be in one place at a time. And people could be using more intrusive prompts when lesser ones would work. So the stimulus prompting could be a much better way to fade prompts. To use because with the idea of fading them in the future. So there's a couple types here. There's more than this, but we talked about this position prompt as well. Place the correct choice closer to the client. Could be a position prompt. So we're engaging in flashcards. We have 3 flashcards out there, and we want the client, we'll use the example before, to touch blue. The VIP keeps touching yellow. So what do I do with the card to help the VIP select the correct card? Go ahead, sorry.
Switch the order.
I'll switch the order as I go for it. Well, what do I do as far as a prompt to make sure they select the blue one?
Make it bigger than the others.
Okay, I can make it bigger than the others. But with a positional prompt, what am I trying to do?
You could do hand over hand.
Okay, I could do hand over hand, but that would be a response prompt.
Put it
Move the-
closer than the other one.
Yes. Thank you. I'm going to move the blue card closer to the VIP, right? That's the idea with the positional prompt. Then I'm going to move it closer to the VIP. So when I say touch blue, the VIP has the blue card right in front of them, and the other choices are back in the background. Now, how would I fade that? Using that, who answered that, by the way?
I did.
Well, thank you for that answer. And how do you think we would fade that prompt? That would be-
Slowly move the blue card back into line with the other ones.
Yeah, Chrissy, great. So after that first successful trial, I'm going to provide reinforcement, and then I'm going to slowly move it back into the array or back with the other cards. Hey, thanks a lot for your participation. You're so right on that. Thank you. And then the redundancy prompt is one or more stimulus or response dimensions, color, size, or shape are paired with the correct choice. So someone else said this example when we were talking about the positional prompt. Was it you, Nadine?
I had mentioned making it bigger than the others.
So yeah, so that could be an example of redundancy prompt. We're making it bigger and we're changing the size of the correct answer to be bigger. Another example here, and I always like to think about this is money, is cash. And cash kind of like looks the same. You know, it's like green, it's all crinkly. It has like old guys on it. You know, like how do I know what's what with this money? It's like all the same to me. Well, what can I do? I'm not going to give you guys an answer. What can I do?
Like you could go over what you could purchase with certain types of money or like the amount.
Well, sure, I could do that. But if I'm teaching someone like the value of money, what can I
The numbers.
change? Yeah, what would I do with the numbers?
Numbers.
Like
Make them
assign each
bigger.
one a different amount, like a $10 bill, you would say that gets this, it's bigger. Show them that that's bigger than a $5 bill. Somehow.
Yeah, that's really clever. I really like that idea. Yeah. Yeah, you could do that. And I was just thinking about making that number really big in the corner. You know what I mean? To make sure we draw our VIP's eyes to discriminate between the different values, right? So we would make that 10 really big in the corner so that our VIP's eyes would look to that 10 and recognize that that's a $10 bill. And then how would I fade that?
You'd slowly shrink the size down to a normal size.
That's right. So I slowly shrink the size down to a normal size. What else can I do if I was trying to draw? This is another example of redundancy prompt that I really like that I learned about in school just incidentally. There was not when I was in school. Well, actually maybe when I was in school, but I didn't realize it was a prompt at the time. What if when you're like doing that presentation and like you have like a Christmas concert you're putting on for all the parents and the kids aren't sure where to stand on stage. What did the teachers do to help the kids know where they should stand?
Put
Put
tape
an
on
X
the
on
floor.
the floor. Yep.
Well, yeah, put tape on the floor with their name or something like that, right? And then after the child engages in going up, they start knowing where they're standing on stage. They start knowing who they're standing next to. They could probably get rid of that tape, right? Because they could just get rid of it, make it smaller, cut it down to size until it's gone. And the student will probably know exactly where to stand. So you see that these are all over the place and people use them all the time. But we just want to make sure, and we're familiar with them clearly. You guys all answered at the same time there. But just make sure, I think one of the steps that people forget is to fade them, to get rid of them. They shouldn't just remain forever. That piece of tape shouldn't be on the ground till the next Christmas concert, but they could fade them over time, that they should be faded into oblivion. So here's an example, and sorry for the pictures, but here's an example of teaching a student subtraction using stimulus prompting. Can you guys see this okay?
Yeah.
What did this author do in this book to teach the student using stimulus prompting?
It looks like he started with like really bold like dark lined stick figures and then that kind of faded as it went on. Also like the first three have the dots in the middle, so he faded that, making it less prominent to the last one where there's no stick people.
Yes, exactly right. So they faded it over time. They use people to kind of help the student see what's going on, help prompt, and hopefully they are getting the right answer. And it looks like, they have 7 people and 2 are walking away. Is kind of how they portrayed this. And then as they're moving forward, as the VIP starts picking up what we're putting down, they have faded these stick figures until there is no stick figures anymore. And we hope the VIP will engage in the subtraction problem without that additional prompting or help. Okay, I'm on the slide, and so here's an example of the positional prompt. And we see that the teacher is asking for the banana card, and the teacher has moved the banana card closer to the student, so they will be more likely to pick the correct answer. And over time, on the second, third trial, we are slowly moving that card back into the array and leading our VIP to success that way. Okay. Any questions so far, guys, about what we're doing here? And guys, remember, these don't need to be about cards or just about cards. They could be used for lots of different behaviors. Here's an example of the stimulus fading as well, where we're teaching the word banana, and the first card has a picture of the banana in the back to really help be able to read that word banana. Oh, we know it's a banana. I can see the picture of the banana. And this, after that, we're going to try the faded banana where the picture's slightly faded away. And then finally, the third picture where there's no picture of the banana at all. So just another example of how we might fade a stimulus prompt. Does anyone have any questions about stimulus prompt fading, response prompt fading, why we do it, differential reinforcement, anything? Let's go. Let's hear your question. No questions. All right. Don't forget you can reach out on Teams if you do as well. So error correction. So if our VIP, we're engaged in these prompts, we're trying to fade our prompts, but our VIP made a mistake. So this is just one example of an error correction procedure that we might implement. What could happen is if our VIP engages in an incorrect response and then we provide a prompt right away, we can make a behavioral chain that includes that mistake. So if a mistake is made, what I like to do is break eye contact or hold up your hand to indicate an incorrect response. I'm going to wait several seconds so I don't create a behavioral chain, and usually it's about 3 seconds. And then I'm going to maybe increase my prompt level. So if I'm using a verbal prompt to teach someone to wash their hands, and they make a mistake in the step of the process, I'm going to hold out my hand, wait a few moments, 3 seconds. And then I'm going to maybe increase my level of prompt by using a model prompt. Show the VIP that step that they made a mistake with and encourage them to participate in the correct response using the more intrusive prompt. In this case, we went from a verbal, which there was a mistake, to a model prompt. And then if our VIP engages in that behavior, I'm going to provide that moderate level of reinforcement. So just a way, so, our VIPs aren't going to be always successful. And the other thing is, what happens when people continue to make mistakes on a behavior?
They get frustrated and then they don't want to try it anymore.
Yeah, people want to engage in behaviors they're good at. People don't want to engage in behaviors they're bad at or keep making mistakes with. So it's important that we set our VIPs up for success. If they make one mistake, we're not going to keep allowing them to make mistakes after mistakes after mistakes. They're going to become very frustrated and they're not likely to engage in those behaviors again in the future. So I want to set them up for success by we see a mistake. I'm going to break eye contact or hold up my hand for 3 seconds. I'm going to use a more intrusive prompt that hopefully will generate the behavior from our VIP and then provide reinforcement that way. Any corrections about error correction? Any questions about error correction? Sorry, it's like a tongue twister. All right, I got a lot of this material, all of the material from Cooper. That is the end of the training. Do you guys have any questions? What did you guys learn today? Anything you could use in the field? What was your favorite part of the training?
We'll say I'm thinking about teaching a client how to use the toaster oven, and the stimulus fading would definitely help with that, with teaching temperature and time.
Oh, very nice, very cool. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad you're generalizing this training to ABA applications. Anyone else?
I like the prompt delay to give the client and the VIP an opportunity to respond.
Me too. And also it's easier for clinicians, I think, to engage in that. You could just stick with that one prompt. You know, you don't have to keep switching prompts, which could be very useful and very easy to think about when we're delivering service. So I do like that one as well, Joanne. Anyone else? All right, guys. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you guys this morning, talking about prompting. I hope you guys all have a great holiday weekend this weekend and enjoy some time with the family, enjoy some nicer weather. If you need anything from me, I'm just a message away on Teams. You guys can reach out to me at any time. I'd be happy to talk with you and answer any questions you may have or help you with anything you might be dealing with. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Thanks for everything.
Take care,
Thank
Mike.
you.
Mike, have a great day.
Have a
Happy
good one.
Easter.
Yeah, Mike.
Happy Easter.
Thank you. Happy Easter, everyone.
Everybody take care.